Clearly, I mean, GDP, we all know that you can measure it through expenditure, you can measure it through income, you can measure it through production. But then on the side of the report that came from Ghana Statistics, they tell you that on the production side, mining and quarrying is the one leading our economic growth. Then I ask myself, how many people are employed in these sectors? How many people get jobs in this sectors so that they can improve on their income and then build up into their savings and think about the future. And indeed, if mining and quarrying is what is driving the growth, let's look at a complementary product like cement bag sales, cement bag sales. Bank of Ghana has some indicators that we may have to look at, which normally precede the GDP growth. So, for to measure the GDP growth, we have what we call the leading indicators and the lagging indicators. One of the indicators that precedes, the GDP growth is sales of cement bags in the country. And if you go to Bank of Ghana's website, there is a reduction in sales of, cement bags. So if mining and quarrying is what is driving the growth, then we expect that sales of cement bags will go up because it is a complementary product to, the things that we get from mining and quarrying, the stones that we get from mining and quarrying. Then we should see more buildings springing up. So we ask ourselves, if mining and quarrying is what is driving the growth, then indeed, why is it that cement bag sales are coming down? Or it could be that we are exporting, these stones that we are producing from the mining and quarrying. If we are exporting, then we should see some impact on our exchange rate. So from where I sit, I will not tout this as, what we call strong growth. Let's look at, the exchange rates, part of the growth that, the finance minister talks about. Now, clearly, we all saw how the dollar was behaving just before the elections, and suddenly we enter into 1 month. We last month into transition, and then we started seeing some, stability. Let me tell you, you see, in economics, right, parameters or drivers or indicators, they normally find themselves quickly to come down, but to improve on it, it takes time. You need the market forces. You need conscious policies. You need things that will drive, this indicator into a certain trajectory that will always look positive in the eyes of, the ordinary citizen. What we see now is more or less like, kind of a reaction during the election time. It could be that our reserves were being cleared to keep the money stable, to keep the dollar stable. But that does not mean that it is a sustainable, stability or exchange rate improvement that we are seeing. So clearly, we have to be measured and stop, the propaganda kind of economic management that we see. When it happens like that, even the trust in our economic numbers will be problematic. If I look at this, it becomes a problem. But let's not be so happy with the numerical, I call it numerical reduction because, it is an economic growth, but then we don't really get the connection between our well-being and then the growth that is being realized. So if you look at going ahead, right, we have so many things that wait us to celebrate this numerical growth that the finance minister has been touting the economy to be in. If you look at currently, the US has changed up. And we all know that US is a safe haven for, international investment. And Trump's administration is pro-US business. So when things improve over there, don't think we're going to get dollars moving around as we expect. So effectively, people will send their money there. We have debt to service as well, which is awaiting us. We have not done much when it comes to, export, when it comes to reduction in import over the years to warrant, the celebration of this, economic numbers, especially the exchange rate, and then the so-called, economic growth that we're talking about. Now we're looking at the banking sector. You will say that the banks are making profits, but trust me, the same Bank of Ghana's website has what we call, credit to the private sector. It has been reducing over the past, years. So you ask yourself, where is the growth coming from? Where is the profit the banks are making coming from? It is coming from the short end, part of the market, which is the treasury bill market. You can't use treasury bill money to build roads. When you talk about, sustainable growth, you can't use treasury bill money to put up infrastructure. They are basically short term. The investor is looking for his money maximum within 1 year. Yeah. Now, ask yourself what is happening at the bond market that we had a restructuring. Apart from the institutional, agencies like SNATE and, insurance companies that are mandated, to invest in the bond market, nobody is investing there. Roland, I believe you yourself, if we ask you to put your money on the bond market, you would like to put your money there. So from where I sit, it's not, a resilient growth, it's not a sustainable growth. I believe that is the growth that, we want to please the IMF, because IMF always uses a reference point as a measure of, improvement. They are looking at possibly during the COVID, or looking at possibly how inflation went up all the way to 51%.
Okay.
And then suddenly it drops to around 6%. So we need to be careful how we celebrate this numerical improvement.
Right. And if you look at what the growth figures are, Solomon, it looks like we're mainly in the extractives, oil and gas, and some of those areas. And so it doesn't trickle down to some of the key sectors, industry, whether it's agri, etc., where we have direct inputs into whether it's jobs or relatable returns on investments for investors. At the end of the day, would you also differ from that position that seemed to have been taken by Samuel-Aye, Dr. Samuel-Aye, and rather perhaps gravitate towards Kwesi Kwarteng, that, look, we need to ascribe reasons why the economy is where it is, and that the blame should not be on government or solely on government?
Thank you very much, Roland, and let me also greet my co-panelist and also my brother, Professor Lord Mensah, for a beautiful work done this morning. The truth of the matter is that the statement by the finance minister might be considered as a propaganda and political statement.
Oh, is this a true?
No, it's not a true statement. It's a political statement. And if you understand politics, you know the relevance of it in 2028. This is a minister that is about going out. The minister must make a statement which will stand the test of time, that in 2020, when they go back to Ghana and the Ghanaian people to seek for their mandate, he will make reference to this statement.
You mean the publication and all that is all in sync?
Yeah, it's in sync. So that in 2028, he will just go back to the people of this country and tell them that, look, when we were living power, we left a resilient economy. You understand? And that would be the defining moment. So you have to treat it as a political statement, because everything to do with this economy does not support what the minister said. You understand? If you say an economy is resilient, what it means is that the economy has the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from any difficulties or toughness. Where we are now, can you say for sure that if we were to experience, let's forget about Russia-Ukraine business and say another disaster, would this economy in this current state be able to withstand any shocks? What are we doing? What have we done that will put us in that position to withstand any shocks? We have just been told by the trade advocacy that Ghana as a country imports $1 billion worth of tin tomatoes annually. You understand? We are talking about $1.2 billion worth of vehicles and spares. Sugar is within the range of $300 million. We are talking about iron and steel, about 1.2 billion. What have we done in these regards to reduce the imports of some of these things? You know, for an economy to be resilient, your productive sectors must be operating at full length. We have done nothing of that sort. And even if you go back to the Ministry of Finance's own website, having made this statement, they go ahead to say that to be able to sustain these, we must focus on planting for food and jobs. We must do one district, one factory. We must push more money into the productive sector. They know that until we do this, all that he said is a political statement, and there is nothing to back whatever he has said.
Now, if we have to just oppose that with what the Trade Advocacy Network did publish,
Yes.
you'll find that when it comes to planting for food and jobs and then the value chain,
Yes.
for example, $1 billion is spent on importation of tin tomatoes.
Yes, which is crazy. How can we as a country
$800 million on rice.
on rice? We have the Tongu, North Tongue, South Tongue areas, and then the Western North areas be suitable for rice production. And as a government for close to 8 years, we have not done anything of this nature to reduce this importation. And you are telling me the
But there was plenty for food and jobs.
yeah, that was a joke.
Joke?
A minister enters into the fray of selling plantain at the Ministry of Agriculture, and he thought it was okay. Your own Minister of Agriculture decides.
But so he wanted us to see that they were doing plenty for food and
That
jobs.
was for me. If the president would mind, he should have sacked the minister the very moment he said that he pushed food to the Minister of Finance agreed to be selling to the general public. It's a failure. General failure, total failure. And it showed in the whole election that we went to. They have been doing this, and the Ghanaians tell you that there is a difference between fiction and reality. The reality of the Ghanaian is that we don't have jobs, our CD to the dollar is not doing well, everything in the economy. Just this morning, they have increased fuel. Are you aware of that?
I have the latest.
We are going through doom. So La Paz areas, they have been in without power for the past 3 days.
La Paz?
La Paz areas, call them. So how can you tell me that your economy is growing when your energy, when you talk about food, crude and other, that is the engine of your economy. We have had serious issues with our energy requirements. So how can you come and tell me that the economy has experienced any growth? That's why I said it's a political statement and it must be viewed as that. This is the very minister, just July, only 5 months ago, was pleading with Ghanaians to have patience because the economy was in tatters. What magic did he do between July to December that we are talking to come and tell us that everything is all right? Yeah, you got to take it serious.
You mean the minister doesn't take us serious?
And that is why
He's the one watching the numbers, talking to the
it is
bilateral.
seriousness that has led them to this heaviest defeat. If he's going to behave like this in opposition, then I'm telling you they will not have any position, any future as a party. I don't think they will really have any future. Let me tell you, my only advice to this administration is that they must begin to deal with some of these propaganda.
Meaning what?
Meaning that they must not allow this government to set the agenda for them before they leave office. Secondly, they must take this great transformation book very, very serious, Mr. President. Because you see, when you refer to the trade advocacy statistics data, all the solutions in this book was to address the problem that they have raised. The establishment of 10 strategic anchor industries to deal with automobile. See the amount of money we spend on automobile, vehicles and cars, 1.2 billion. Going to it, we're talking about electronics. How much we spend there? About $600 million. Going to it, we're talking about new agricultural revolution that would have dealt with tomatoes and other components. You understand? Sugar and so on and so forth. These are the issues we must deal with. You cannot run an economy with propaganda. When you run an economy with propaganda, the electors will expose you with a difference of almost 2 million. And that is what has happened. And I believe going forward, the Russians and the Ukrainians must begin to send their lawyers into this country to shut up the half of this. We have abused.
Solomon, you can't say that.
We have abused the name. Look, I find it difficult why Ghana must abuse the name of Russia and Ukraine for their own war. They are fighting. Two friendly nations are doing their small gimmicks. Then you rely on it heavily as a reason why we are suffering, and you think it's fair? You think it's fair? We have not been fair to the people of Russia and Ukraine. And I wonder what the ambassadors and embassies are doing in this country. They must take this country to the international court of whatever, and then begin to access whether or not their war had anything to do with us. Are we not a net exporter of crude crude in this country? So if they are fighting, and you are a net exporter of crude, and by the actions and inactions, price of crude oil skyrocketed. Did we not benefit from it? So why must that be your storyline every day? It must cease after 7th of January. so that this country will have its peace of mind. So treat it as a political peace. There is nothing in there. This Minister of Finance had no business being there. He has failed us together with Kenneth Weata, and I wonder why he even took up this position, because the whole place has been dismissed.
So it's a president who is the appointing authority, and you wanted to rebut to, because I wanted to ask you, Kwesi Kwarteng, because it's very instrumental.
Just a quick one.
Well, yes, so as you rebut to it, we'll just spend some 3 minutes because the time is over, but it's important to ask the question. Can we make the conclusion that the response of the voters to the NDC and John Dramani Mahama as against Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the NPP government really just shows that they were not feeling the management of the economy in their pocket, and that the economy really was in the doldrums. And as a result of that could be a good justification.
Thank you.
And so not support the finance minister's statement.
I'm going to respond to that, but permit me to just read this to you briefly. Then I think you just gave me 3 minutes. This is a story on Ghana Web. I'm going to give you just 3 stories. But first one, this one is my joy online. This is Mr. Setepe. There are positive signals that Ghana's economy is bouncing back to pre-COVID era. Pre-COVID-19 era, September 12 December 2024. This Mr. Tepe making that mission. This is not the finance minister.
So there are positive indicators.
Solo, please allow him. When you were talking,
when finance minister made it, he's an MPP. He is aligned to the MPP. You poured out all your political drama, but this coming from Tepe. I hope you also respond to him.
Of course.
Now let me move on to Mr. President Mahama. There is a Ghana Web story. Mahama makes U-turn amidst COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war was responsible for economic crisis. And just a quick reading. Former President John Mahama has admitted that the global events such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have contributed to the current economic crisis in the country. Of course, you can read more. Now let's go to the final one, where during his lecture at the African Business Conference, which was organized by Harvard Business School. This is Mr. John Mahama admitting the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the Russia-Ukraine on global economies and African economies, including the Ghanaian economy. When you travel outside the country, you can make that admission that indeed it had a devastating impact on worldwide economies, African economies, and the Ghanaian economy. But as soon as you land in Ghana, all of a sudden, that argument or that point that he made outside there, that's not suffice again. Is that what we are saying? Mr. Mahama made such bold statements, such admissions on the international platform, of course, which has been corroborated by Mr. Tepe, that as of now, the economy is recovering. You do not want to take into account all these statements, but when it's coming from the finance minister, hell should break loose. It is the NPP that has committed the same.
You understand that?
Respectfully, Solo. Let me tell you something. I'm just going to give you the first 4 years of our administration. I'm just going to give you some few figures. We had the longest period of single-digit inflation, an average GDP growth rate of 7%, and of course, strong external balance. Now, I'm going to justify you with, their side when Doctor was making some assessments. And of course, when the finance minister was making some comments, he highlighted the key achievements and pointing out to Ghana's gross international reserves, which currently stand at 8 billion, equivalent to 3.5 months of import cover. Now let's compare this to what they even left. We are talking about now. What they left was 6.2 billion in terms of their reserves. Now let's really move on. The growth rates in 2024 we had 4.8, in the first quarter 7%, in the second 7.2, in the third reflect an average 6.3. This is significantly higher than. No, let me learn. This is even higher. The growth rate, respectfully, the current growth is even higher than what we inherited.
No, but you have
hold on.
Was there any debt restructuring in 2016?
Was there any COVID in 2016?
But there was
there any COVID in 2016?
There was a reduction of what?
Was there any COVID in 2016? Was there any COVID in 2016? Was there any Russia in 2016? Let me learn. You have the opportunity to speak.
You
have the opportunity to speak. I am saying that Mr. Mahama himself has admitted on 2 international platforms the devastating impact of the COVID and Russia-Ukraine on the whole world's economy.
He didn't say it was the sole reason why the economy went junk to the point that now we now have to restructure.
But you see, when you are restructuring a debt, of course, certainly when your economy is in shock, and the economy, I mean, the turnover or the outlook doesn't look good, and you bring in institutions like IMF, and IMF say that, well,
it's not every instance that IMF makes you restructure. We've been to the IMF in recent times, so
no, but it comes with conditionalities. It depends on the arrangement that the government
it depends on how poor or how well the economy is doing.
Yes, but there was a point in time as part of our IMF program where we froze employment. At that time, nobody saw that the economy was poor. Is that the case? Respect.
All right.
At a point in time, as part of that IMF conditionalities, graduate unemployment or employment in general was frozen. Compare it to a situation where maybe your external debtor said, I'm going to give you that fiscal space to be able to pay. But you may also have to do a local commitment by also restructuring the local debt. So it depends on yes, I agree with you. It depends on your conditionalities, it depends on the exigencies of the moment, it depends on the variables before the table. I agree with you. But you see, you cannot overlook the impact of the COVID-19. That's what I'm saying, that if you even look at it from the global perspective, look at the impact on even that, I mean, the global shock on even incumbent governments. The fact that even about 70% of our incumbent governments are. Of course, you asked a question about Ghanaians losing vote. If you want to have a very, an approach which is not a lazy one in analyzing the elections, one can clearly see that it is not Ghanaians going to vote for the NDC, but has more to do with an apathy recorded. Clearly. You had in 2020
because you have been a second time, we will not have the opportunity.
Professor Lord Mensah, so going forward, what does it mean? What really is the future like interim? The first quarter of next year, and then also, let's say, the first half of next year. What does it look like? Because here is the finance minister on one hand saying this, but the numbers also just speak differently. And so, per your analysis, what do we need to do? We need to cut costs, make sure the fees are reduced, etc. in terms of the welfare policies. What do we need to do, and then what really does it look like?
Okay, so we're looking at two things here. The economy is going through difficulty, and if you want to see the summary of the difficulty that we are going through, look at the interest rate structures. I mean, if you look at the interest rate structures, the long-term interest rates are lower than the short-term. Look, that is the treasury bills that we're seeing now. Treasury bill market has been witnessing higher interest rate, which tells you that government's available funds are on short-term. So what I'm expecting going forward, I've been told the finance minister will read the budget for the first quarter of next year. I think next week or something. I don't know, whether end of this week. Now, what I'm expecting is that, I mean, they should realize the situation we find ourselves in, and possibly reduced, the budget deficit further, at least in the first quarter, rather than coming to call out economic numbers that will call for unnecessary expenditure lines that, at the end of the day, can derail, some of the gains that we've made, over the past, month as a result of being under the IMF program. You see, we went into this election under an IMF program, which at the end of the day, IMF, guidelines and, the rules were serving as a guide. So more or less tamed, the expenditure lines that we're supposed to make into the year. So going forward, I'm expecting that, we will stick to the IMF program, at least the first quarter of the year, before new administration comes in, in between. So I think, we are still under an IMF program, and the budget is always dictated by, the program, and we have to stick to it.
All right. Just 2 minutes on this. What's the outlook like for the transition team, the president-elect's team?
It is clear that President Mahama, the president-elect, is ready to deliver Ghana to ensure that there's prosperity, there's economic stability. But you see, the point is that your government.
We are coming to government.
Hold on, please. Your government has taken people's money from their pockets. For the first time in history, 70-year-old, 80-year-old, 60-year-old men and women, old men and women, have paraded themselves in front of finance ministry demanding their monies. You have taken their money. Monies you are supposed to pay, you are not paying, and you are sitting on TV clapping. Please. You are not the
When you were
one
talking,
that
they didn't
understand.
get. So
You are happy that under your government you have taken people's money to domestic net exchange program. You are sitting on TV talking.
What happened?
Please.
no, there were pictures.
Today.
Is that what happened?
From where?
They are supposed to pay interest. They are not paying. You are saying that they are not taking people's money. Today, our international reserves is 3.1. It means that if there is shock in Ghana, we can only sustain for 3 months. Meanwhile, the NDC was 5 months. Please. So how can you sit on TV and say that your economy you are living is better? You understand the point I'm making? An economy that cannot pay debtors. Oh,
Talk, and
you understand the point
for
I'm
me.
making?
You have a minute.
So it is clear the economy was shambolic. It is the reason why the people of Ghana have voted them out. And I'm happy that the president-elect has made it clear that a committee will be formed, a potent team will be formed to change the destiny of this country. And you saw that today, a list of 5 potent men have been listed to recover all the monies that have been stolen from this country. You have the likes of lawyer Martin Pebu, Kofi Boache, Daniel Domilevo, coming to take all the money that these people have stolen through the National Cathedral Project, through PDS, another very stinking program. Please. To actually take all the money that they have stolen. So there is hope for Ghana. I am very hopeful that the president-elect will take steps to make things better.
$8 billion
Just 2 minutes.
talking about if the country was servicing its external debt, we wouldn't be able to accumulate that 8 billion. So the point has to be made that we have decided as a result of reckless management of the economy not to be paying people that we owe outside the country, for which reason we have been able to save 8 billion, which only covers 3.5 of our import cover. So it doesn't put anybody in a better shape. What we are only saying, I will still insist that this current administration must go back to the GTP, which is the Great Transformation Plan, and implement the 10 strategic anchor industries, which will diversify the base of this economy, so that we will not receive the shocks that we did during COVID. What was COVID? We are talking about the fact that but for COVID, we will not be where we are. COVID affected Cote d'Ivoire, it affected Rwanda, it affected Burkina, it affected Niger. Their inflation never traveled beyond 7%. Ours went as far as 54%. So what are you talking about? And the Ghanaian verdict was clear enough. Let us stop some of these things and begin to take the people of this country serious, so that they would...
Professor Lord Benson, just conclude on this for me. I know you have a minute. Just do that.
Yeah, so the savings that we are talking about from the restructuring, they are all expected savings. They're not realized savings. And you know, in Ghana, we cannot boast of, monies that are expected as a result of mismanagement that we've been having over the past years. So we have to differentiate between the two. But what I can say is that we are under the dictate of an IMF program, and we should, stick to it as, expected of us. And there's nothing different we're going to do as far as, the budget appropriations and allocations are concerned within the IMF program. Remember, we've promised the IMF that we're going to increase our revenue to GDP from 14% to 18% by the end of the program. And so we should look at all these things and situate it in context.
All right, thank you very much, people, for passing through the studio as well. We have cash out to go to a short code *439#.